In the face of tremendous technological development at unprecedented and exponentially increasing speeds, we stand at a pivotal moment to decide whether or not we actively accelerate humanity's natural evolution. And if we do, then how? Welcome to Superhuman.
I want to start this panel off by doing a visualization exercise. If you want to close your eyes, feel free to. The year is 2030. Human flourishing, we've reached it. Everyone is flourishing. What does the world look like? Is there joy, peace, longevity, escape velocity? How are we thriving? If anyone wants to shout out what they feel human flourishing will look like, please do. Anyone? Love it. Sober Burning Man. For me, it's all of the above, including Sober Burning Man. It's about physically and mentally thriving, not just in self, but as a collective, community, and also in our environment as well. And that's why this panel, I think, is the most important one that these gentlemen will be taking this year, because we have an incredibly difficult task ahead. We have so many challenges ahead over the next 5 years to get to human flourishing, and we're going to cover a few of those challenges for sure in the next 25 minutes. But first, a little intro. Myself, I am Julian, the host of the Beyond Tomorrow podcast, an investor, a former founder, and a former Newsweek journalist. Brian Kennedy, I'm sure a lot of you know, is one of the top longevity scientists out there, the former Buck Institute CEO and the current director for Healthy Longevity, the Center for Healthy Longevity in Singapore. In Yuta Lee, we have a true pioneer in stem cells, human trophoblast stem cells specifically, the founder of Accelerated Bio, a Buddhist who grew up in Taiwan and then in the US. And finally, Jose, who has wears more hats in the longevity space than anyone I know. He is a futurist, a transhumanist, an engineer, and also an author. La Muerte de la Muerte being one of his books, The Death of Death, and many others as well. I'm sure you can get a signed copy afterwards. So let's dive in. Human flourishing. Brian, over to you. In the context of what you're doing today, how is your work leading to the future of human flourishing?
Well, you know, I think that I'm always amazed at where I am. You know, I'm amazed to be on this stage with so many people here because, you know, I started doing longevity research in 1990. So I'm an aging researcher. And the field was very small for 20 to 25, 30 years, you know, almost 25 years, I'll say, where it was the same scientists, mostly preclinical people working on animal models, yeast and worms and flies. You started to get the impression that it's never going to like flourish in itself. And now we see such a rapidly growing field that it feels great to me to see all kinds of new people coming in, people thinking about things like longevity, escape velocity. The field has just gotten to an amazing place. And I think the most interesting thing about it right now is that throughout most of my career, yeast and worms and flies and mice were the model organisms for aging research. And now billionaires are the model organisms for aging research. And I still have like half of my body that works academically, and we try to answer the basic questions. But the left side is working with clinics now, and so I get to see a lot of new strategies for longevity and how they're working with people. So I think it's a great time, and we just have to make sure we can keep that momentum going and start to really validate in a way that the rest of the world will accept that we're slowing the aging process. I think that's the next key step, and I think we'll get there too.
Very exciting. Yuta, so much of human flourishing is about equity and access, and one of the biggest issues with these advanced therapeutics is they're only available to a handful of people. At what point do you think these amazing advanced therapeutics that you're developing will be available for all?
It's actually going to be very soon. In fact, that's something that I'm very passionate about working on. So As you mentioned before, we're working with the human trophoblast stem cells. And these cells are the earliest cells that you could possibly source without any ethical issues. And because of that, they are extremely powerful in many ways. They grow so much. We can push them out to 85 population doublings. I mean, that's equivalent to being able to grow 2 trillion human beings. So scale is solved, right? And also, because they're from such an early state, they are putting out extremely potent regenerative messages, right? And so in the last year, we've been working with the National Institute on Aging on applying the exosomes from these cells towards senescent cells. And what we see is that we can systemically downregulate all inflammation. And as many of you here probably know, if you are downregulating inflammation, you could probably reduce, you know, the chance of disease, right? And so we've only done animal studies, but what I want to do is really push it towards, you know, human use. And so by going through regulatory bodies like the FDA. And where we can get to the scale is because the cells grow so much, we can literally mass produce, industrialize the amount of exosomes and be able to literally have everybody use it as a preventative measure. Now imagine that you're able to say, slow down, stop, or reverse biological aging, right? And you start injecting by IV these exosomes at age 30. That means by the time you're 100, you still have internal organs of a 30-year-old. That's what we're hoping to do, right? So this is the way I think that we can really scale this out and have everybody be able to use it.
Brilliant. Jose, this is, when I said this is a really important panel, like this question in particular is incredibly important. I'm going to quote Peter Diamandis. One of his tweets recently said that technology advances exponentially, but human institutions and societies do not. The gap is growing and the consequences will be disruptive. Wisdom needed. As someone that's looking at getting society future ready, how do we build this collective wisdom in society that's able to close the gap between institutions and this incredible technology that we're developing?
Well, I'm so happy that you begin with my friend Peter Diamandis. We studied together at MIT, and he has this idea that we need to talk about the future and create the future leaders, the future generation. So I am into public advocacy so that people understand that these future technologies are going to be happening very fast. And I strongly do lots of talks, lots of presentations. My book, as you saw, it's here also in Chinese. It's going to be in 20 languages by the beginning of next year. In 2 weeks, I'm going to China to present it. I'm really, really excited. I was candidate for the European Parliament. I was the first candidate to the European Parliament that talked about immortality. And I proposed the creation of the European Anti-Aging Agency. So my goal is that people understand this is real science. This is, and we are very close to rejuvenation technologies because of great scientists like my dear friend Brian Kennedy, who studied at MIT, so I'm very happy, are breaking science, discovering new things. One of the things that was very impactful for me was the Nobel Prize in Medicine in 2012, Shinya Yamanaka, who discovered that aging is flexible and that you can accelerate aging. I don't recommend that to anyone. You can stop aging, or what we want, we can reverse aging. So I am dedicating my life towards that because this is the only issue that is really life or death. Our life is at stake here, and my goal is to kill death before death kills me.
Thank you, Jose. But this collective wisdom, how do we build it? How do we bring people on the journey? Because at the moment, there's very few. We have, what, 300-400 people in this room, plus another, let's say, 100,000. I don't know what the number is, but it's still a fragment of the collective.
But this is growing exponentially. When Aubrey de Grey organized his first conference in Cambridge University in 2003, there were like about 40 people, and there was only one conference. You know, now every year, I personally go to about 25 longevity conferences. This was impossible even to think about before COVID.
Yeah. I recently had Christian Angermeyer on the podcast, and he said, we're entering the greatest period of disruption in human history. If we don't handle the transition consciously, fear will dominate. Fear is the mind killer. So this is a question for you all. What stories do we need to rewrite as a society, as a culture, as we move from a culture built around death to one that embraces longevity, escape velocity, and AGI as well? I'm going to start with you, Brian.
Yeah, I think it's challenging at the moment, and I think a lot about this because, you know, we're in this room and we're all talking about longevity, and I think we're all somewhere on the same spectrum of belief, and we're speaking in an echo chamber, you know, and at the same time in the real world, you know, we have a lot of people that are gaining power and influence by spreading fear. And when you talk to people and ask them, do they want to live forever, if they have, you know, a single parent, two kids, have 2 jobs, have trouble getting money, they're like, what can you do for me now? I'm not worried about living forever. I'm worried about how to improve my situation now. So I think we need to put a lot of effort into reimagining what a story of longevity should be that we can democratize. You can always say that, you know, if you have to do a $100,000 treatment to live forever, that's not accessible to everybody. But the truth is, if you can show validity of that, then you can scale it and the cost will come down. I'm not as worried about that. I'm worried about more about the situation for so many people in the world that they're not privileged enough to be thinking about the future. They're worried about the present. And so I think we have to think hard about what a story looks like that promotes long-term health span, and delays death, which I'm totally in favor of, but it has to work in a broader context as well.
Yuta.
Yeah, it's a really great question. You know, I think that, you know, for at least in our entire lifetimes, you know, we've really grew up and lived with the anxiety of death. And, you know, you can pick religion, you can pick philosophy as a way to kind of address it, pick your path. But I think that what's really going to change is how the next generations feel about it. I mean, I think we really are, you know, at the cusp of longevity, escape velocity. And just think about even pre-World War II, right? Everybody had, like, hunger and starvation was a real thing. And everybody had anxiety about that. But as we actually reach longevity, escape velocity, or even reach immortality, that's going to change. And maybe not for us because it's so entrenched in the way we live, but imagine our children or their children. I mean, they're going to grow up in a world where there's no anxiety for death anymore. That's incredible. So, you know, I imagine what that would be like for them and how they would rewrite philosophy or religion. I think it's incredible.
That's super interesting. So you think actually starting at an elementary level, in high schools, whatever, is probably the best way for us to kind of change the tide?
That's right, yeah.
Jose?
Well, since we are in Stockholm, I think we are caught in the Stockholm syndrome with death. We have fallen in love with death. And I am not in love with death. I am at total war. I think we should not accept aging and death. We have to rage against aging and death. This is the worst human tragedy. This is the only thing that unites the whole of humanity. Even the Russians and the Chinese, everybody here is aging and dying. So we need to rage against this tragedy, this human tragedy. So people need to realize this is urgent. Our life is at stake. You know, unless we do something, all of us are going to die. On the other hand, I think we are so close to longevity escape velocity. With my friend Ray Kurzweil, we talked around 2030, maybe 2032. We should be able to reach longevity escape velocity, and then rejuvenation technologies by 2045. So we are very close. Indeed, this is the last mortal generation and the first immortal generation. So, and I want all of us to be that part of the first immortal generation.
Thanks, Jose. Something tangible now that the audience can take away with them today. What is one thing that everyone can go and implement into their daily lives and into their communities that you believe will move the needle most forward when it comes to human flourishing? Yuta?
Yeah, that's easy for me. Just invest in health span, invest in longevity. You got to help a lot of these therapeutic companies get past the line and really shorten the time to longevity, escape velocity.
Brian?
Can I do 2 short ones?
Sorry?
Can I do 2 short ones? I think at the individual level, what I would say is that what impresses me about hackers is they're measuring. You know, it's not enough to do a healthy lifestyle. It's not enough to take random supplements. You have to couple that with measuring your personal aging, what's happening to you, and course correct and iterate along the way. That other Brian guy that was here earlier, what was his name? I mean, one of the things about him is that he measures everything all the time. And he makes choices about what to try and what not to try, and changes things in and out when he thinks he needs to improve. And at some scale, it's hard to do it at that scale, but at some scale, you need to have both ends, the interventions and the diagnostics. And then just the other one really quickly is, you know, I think at the community level, you need to support science. I mean, science is under attack right now, particularly in the country I came from. I won't say what that is. And, you know, the NIH is under threat. Universities are under threat. Most of the discoveries that have led to everything we know about longevity came from this kind of research, and it still has a valuable place. It should be side by side with the private sector, not alone, but it needs to be supported and not threatened. And right now we're going in the wrong direction, at least in one country. So.
Jose?
Well, if there is only one thing, then you have to read my book. Because those who read The Death of Death will not die, guaranteed. Or as my American friends say, or your money back. No, but seriously, I think we need to do a lot of public advocacy. I need to go also into politics because governments have a lot of money and they don't consider aging as a disease or as a medical condition that can be cured. And governments need to understand this is serious and we are very close. So my goal is to convince people and to convince governments. And for that, I invite you all to the International Longevity Summit that I organized in beautiful Madrid, October 1st and 2nd. We will meet with the future leaders of Spain, because Spain, I don't know if you are aware, Spain has the longest life expectancy in the European Union. And Madrid has the longest life expectancy in Europe, 86.1 years at birth today. That is 3 years longer than here in Sweden, and about 7 years more than in the USA. That is doing very poorly. Anyway, so yes, you need to discover the Mediterranean diet. We will have some snake oil from Brian Johnson. It's extra virgin olive oil made from Spanish and Portuguese olives. So come to Madrid.
There's a great New York Times article a few years ago that said the reason why the Spanish live longer than the Brits was sex and tapas, I think. So more of that. A last question. So we're building this human flourishing movement. Some people point to the Don't Die movement, which is definitely the uniting front right now. But as we know from history, and I was going to say we have, I think, 4 religions across us, including Zeroism, that when religions or a movement become organized, you then see a lot of fragmentation. You see a lot of issues, right? What is one thing that you would recommend to, I'm not going to say the Don't Die movement, but the human flourishing movement, to make sure that we don't go down the same path as some of the other religions we all know very well? Jose?
Well, I am a transhumanist. We believe in super longevity. I like to say immortality. We believe in super intelligence, the singularity, and super happiness. So I think this is actually what superhuman means. We are going to transcend the human age in the next 20 years. We are going to become basically immortal, super intelligent, and super happy. So I believe we need to push this superhuman movement. And as Brian Johnson would say, don't die.
Thank you.
So that's one thing. Just don't die.
Brian, how do we...
I can't follow him.
Yeah, I know.
How do we make sure that we don't become an organization and then just fragments and becomes a bunch of denominations of human flourishing? You know, you've got the Don't Die movement in Southern Africa and the one in whoever that think very differently.
Exactly. We can send him to all of the places. Yeah. It's. I think that. You know, I think we have to realize right now, and by the way, I'm an optimist. I believe we're going to extend longevity significantly in the short term and dramatically in the midterm, and maybe even stop aging in the long term. But right now, we're in this unique situation where if you go to a longevity clinic, they're doing clinical practice. At the same time, it's research. You know, I don't think anyone is at a point right now where they can look at baseline parameters that an individual has and give them a totally personalized regimen for how to extend their lifespan and health span. And so we're in this kind of opaque region between research and clinical practice. And I encourage people to do that, but I think you have to understand that, you know, we're still trying things out. And some things are going to work really well. Some things are not going to work. And I think, but if you keep measuring things and you're at a clinic that's honest and transparent, they can positively influence almost everyone because you can see how things are working and change course. And over a period of time, you'll get to something that increases your health span. So I'm excited. I love people being on the cutting edge and being hackers and trying things. But you have to understand, it's still research right now. It's not guaranteed results. So keep your eyes open.
Yuta.
Yeah, I'm a Buddhist by birth, so I kind of adhere to that. So people call it a religion. I actually think it's more of a philosophy, right? So I kind of look at it the same way. You know, even in this longevity movement or health span movement, I believe that organization's fine. We need it in order to organize something as cool as this. But I think you need to let people have their own agency in how they want to drive that forward, whether it's, you know, the philosophy of how to get to a certain end goal for longevity, yeah, just let people be. And I think that the freedom and free agency is going to draw only more people to it. But the organization is still very important to kind of bring people together.
It's going to be an interesting journey to 2030, and hopefully we gave some answers to how we get there in the best possible way. So thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.